Muito bem, boa tarde a todos. Estamos para mais um webinar aqui na DG Lab. Para os que assistiram ao nosso primeiro webinar, tivemos a presença da Glória Pérez Sameron, ainda em fevereiro, e hoje vamos estar com o Joachim Schopfel. Portanto, o Joachim é professor associado em Ciências da Informação e Comunicação na Universidade de Lille, França, e membro do laboratório de Jericho, portanto é um centro de investigação da Universidade de Lille que se debruça sobre a produção do conhecimento, as ciências da informação e a relação com a sociedade atual e com a tecnologia. De 2009 a 2012 dirigiu o Departamento de Ciências da Informação da Universidade de Lille e entre 2012 e 2017 foi diretor do Centro Nacional de Reprodução de Teses, também em França. Portanto, o Joachim é doutorado em Psicologia pela Universidade de Hamburgo, da Alemanha, publicou vários artigos no campo da comunicação científica e das bibliotecas também académicas e é membro do Conselho Editorial e revisor em várias publicações sobre ciências da informação. Portanto, os interesses do Joachim são vastos, mas mais na área de investigação, portanto, na área da informação científica, nos repositórios abertos, na gestão de dados de investigação e também sobre a ética. O nosso convite para o Joachim hoje surge, de facto, neste contacto que tivemos com os seus trabalhos anteriores, nomeadamente na área das Green Libraries, das bibliotecas verdes e também das Smart Cities. So, Joachim, I was telling our Portuguese participants the work you have been doing about green libraries. That was how I have the pleasure of meeting you a few years ago. And now we are going to talk about smart cities and how these connections work. How can smart cities influence the work of librarians and how can we transform our libraries in smart libraries? It's all about people, connections, technology. You are going to unveil these aspects for us today, and we are expecting an excellent section. So thank you very much. And we are hoping all goes well. I'll translate the questions for you at the end. Okay. So okay. When you want to start.
Yeah, and
it's all for. Thank you very much.
If there's something, you just interrupt me. You say stop.
Okay.
If something doesn't work, it isn't understandable. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, hello everybody. Good afternoon. I hope in Portugal the weather is better than here in France because rain is back and winter is back and it's cold and windy. Anyway, as Sandra told you, I'm teaching library and information science at the University of Lille, it's the northern part of France. I'm a former library director, not from a public library, but from a large research library in France. But my background, my scientific background, is quite different. I'm a psychologist. I studied psychology. I have a PhD in psychology from a German university. Why this topic? Why am I, together with other colleagues, am I interested in smart libraries? As Sandra told you, it's not about technology, it's about people, it's about library itself, the future of libraries. This is the starting point of our interest, my interest in smart libraries. So I will share my screen with you. So I hope it works. You see my, okay. The starting point, in fact, is this. You can see it. I had a quick search on the web on smart cities in Portugal, and I immediately found this paper. It's some years ago already, a paper on top Portuguese smart cities, Bragança, Lisbon, Porto, Oeiras. And so they made a study about smartness of cities, and thought there were 5 intelligent vectors: smart government, smart buildings, smart mobility, smart services and living, smart energy and environment, and above all, people, economy, and information and communication technology. And our question with a group of colleagues, librarians, professors in information science like myself, but also a sociologist and somebody representing infrastructure, and a professor in infrastructure and expert in smart cities, we met and we started to discuss what this new environment means for libraries. This was our question, and we discussed this, and based on this discussion, I published an article in a journal, open access journal, on infrastructures, smart libraries, to present and explain the results of our discussions. And then later on, 2 years ago, this was in 2018, and 2 years later in 2020, together with colleagues from Germany, who are also interested exactly in the same aspect, we prepared a research project, French-German research project on smart libraries. For the moment, we didn't get funding. Maybe in the future we will get. So again, the question is smart city as an opportunity. So there is a new emerging urban environment of information technology and connectivity, mobility, digital nomads, people moving all around, but staying connected, and local community. And this, for us, in our discussion, we consider this as highly relevant for the future development of libraries. In the following way, for us, our idea, our conviction is that a library must propose innovative solutions if they want to stay in the game, in this environment. This is important. In this specific environment, not all libraries, and I will come back to this, not all libraries, of course, are in smart cities, but there are libraries in smart cities, in Porto, in Lisbon. I don't know where you are working, but perhaps you are working in libraries in these towns. And so our conviction is libraries must interpret this challenge, this environment, as an opportunity, not as a threat, as an opportunity. So it's about, in fact, you will have understand, it's about marketing. Our approach is a marketing approach, it's about advocacy for future library development. It's not about high tech. High tech is always already part of library development. Some libraries are more developed than others. Some libraries have more budget, more resources than other libraries. But this is not our approach. It's not about, it's not a kind of catalog of high-tech solutions. This is part of smartness, of course, but it's not all. And we are not advocacies, we are doing not advocacy, not marketing for high-tech solutions. this is not our role. Our reflection, our discussion was about how can libraries together propose solution in this environment. So Sandra already mentioned the fact that I always, together with other colleagues, worked about, and I'm engaged in the movement green libraries. It's exactly for the same reason. Of course, I have my green convictions, if you want, but this is not the important point. The important point is that the environment is changing, and it started to change decades ago. And then there was the Agenda 21. Now there are 70 goals, sustainable goals from the United Nations. So in this environment, a library must take position. And this was the reason why we started to work on green libraries and global libraries. And now in the environment from smart cities, we work about smart libraries. Our questions are, how can library management seize the opportunity of the smart cities? How can libraries be redefined in this new infrastructural ecology? How does the model of the smart city impact the understanding of libraries? Understanding by other people, but also understanding by the librarians themselves. And what would be in this context the constituents, the dimensions, if you want, the important parts of a new concept of smart libraries. Our objectives were to present the concept of smart libraries to people interested in smart cities and infrastructure. This was our idea. How can one argue about the future of libraries to people who are not necessarily interested in libraries, but who are interested in smart cities? And I think this is something, if you're a director of a public library, I suppose it's a situation, you know, that you have to defend your resources, your funding to people who are not necessarily interested in what you are doing, but maybe interested in culture or education or social integration, or I don't know what. So you must adapt your arguments, your language, your words to the way the other people are, politicians, for instance, are thinking. So, second objective was to show the potential value of libraries for the development of smart cities. They can contribute. This was also our conviction, our small group there, that libraries can contribute to the development, but how? And to discuss a theoretical framework which may be helpful for the future development of libraries in specific environments. I suppose the third objective is because we are academic teacher, so we need theoretical frameworks. It's perhaps less important for you, but for us, it's our everyday life. So,
Joachim, may I ask a question?
Yeah, right.
So when you work on this framework, you look at all realities about libraries. So academic libraries, public libraries. You do a range about the reality, or you work on a specific type of library to assume what connection must be made in this reality of smart cities and smart libraries?
Yes, good question. When we discussed together this new environment, we had two types of library in mind. The first one, of course, is a public library in the smart city. Public. I think this is the most important part of what we follow, and also when we had to look on the reality in smart cities and in publication, what is published on the web, this is the most important. But there's also the part of academic libraries in smart cities or also on smart campuses. For instance, in Lille, and this was the professor of infrastructure, our partner for this work. In Lille, we have a scientific campus, which is considered as a smart campus with connectivity and all this stuff. And the question is, how can the academic library contribute to this reality? There's a policy, don't you know? There's an objective to make the campus smart and even smarter. And how can the academic library contribute to this?
Yes, in that example, we may think as public libraries the importance of looking about the surroundings, where and because our participants are mostly from public libraries. Yes. So the message we have to go along with this webinar is that it's very important to look around our region where our public library works, which people, what publics do we want to achieve with our work, and what are the characteristics of our region, if not only in the cities but in the rural areas also. I think it's the importance of the message is look around and see what's happening, what the public wants, and how can you improve your work also.
Yes, sure. Again, what we had in mind was library staff from a public library in a town. And imagine the town, they have a green government. So to get money, we suppose that the staff, and we have examples in France, it's working like this. I suppose in Portugal, it's the same way that it's working. Then the library must have a kind of green discourse to get funding from the town hall. Yeah. And if the town hall has a strategy in smartness, so would be a good idea from a marketing viewpoint to adopt this strategy and to say, okay, we are here, we are already smart, partly, and we contribute in two ways to become even smarter and to contribute to the smartness of our town.
Yes, let me just go in Portuguese to our listeners. Portanto, o Joaquim, como vocês têm estado também a assistir, está aqui assim a fazer uma aproximação ao trabalho de investigação que tem feito nos últimos anos, em parceria na Universidade de Lille, sobre estas questões das Smart Cities e das Smart Libraries, pensando nas bibliotecas nas cidades, não é? O que eu estava a colocar a questão ao Joaquim é que a nossa realidade portuguesa das bibliotecas públicas ultrapassa esta questão das cidades, porque temos de facto bibliotecas noutros territórios mais interiores, com outras características. Se podíamos pensar as coisas desta forma, portanto a abordagem que ele nos traz hoje é uma abordagem virada também para as cidades, mas a importância de transmitir esta mensagem do olhar àquilo que nos rodeia, a importância do marketing, das mensagens que passamos às nossas tutelas, às nossas instituições, para que de facto deem importância ao trabalho que as bibliotecas têm que promover dentro do ambiente, destes ecossistemas em que elas próprias se inserem. So, Joachim, you may continue.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next slides, I will be very short because it's a kind of framework for our concept. The libraries, if they want to develop a smart concept, a smart policy, they will not start from zero. They are already technology, as I said, and there are other projects and other concepts actually in the library environment. And I think you know them. We identified 4 models, recent models, which shape the library landscape today. Information commons, especially I think in the English speaking world. Information commons, especially in the United Kingdom, and where public libraries have been transformed into a kind of idea stores with several learning, informative, entertaining, and cultural opportunities. Regarding smart cities, and this is what we did, we looked for similar elements between the smart cities and these concepts. Regarding smart cities, the 2 elements make the link: the community, the proximity with the community, and the shared resources and facilities inside of the library. Second model is from the academic world. This is the learning center. You may have heard about learning centers, I'm sure, in Portugal, like in most other countries, European countries. Now, at least one part of the university libraries has developed an approach like a learning center, where design and architecture play a major role. There are rooms for work and so on. And again, there are elements which are similar, near to the smart city concept. Focus is on learning. Focus is on learning, and resources are shared, and facilities, equipment is proposed to the people. And not only books, not only books. This is important. Other interesting aspects are the attention paid to usage, experience, learning, cognition, and the role of social and mobile technology. Sandra already mentioned this. Green libraries is a 3rd model which becomes more and more important in the library landscape. Model of the Green Library offers a framework for a large range of actions in favor of waste reduction, recycling, saving energy, and so on and so on and so on. And there are other levels of action: education, awareness raising, advocacy, access to specialized information, and then the building, new buildings or modifying existing buildings and so on. And the model, and this is important, and this is a difference with information commons on learning centers, for instance. The model of Green Library introduces a concept of sustainability into the field of library science. And this is something which is important also in smart cities. Smart cities, one dimension is sustainability, ecological, economical, social sustainability. The 4th model is a model we worked on with colleagues here in France. It's a kind of extension of the Green Library. A couple of years ago, we published a book on the global libraries, and we published a couple of articles and papers and communication. It's just a way to try to implement or to imagine what it would mean if you implement the United Nations policy. At the moment then, it was Agenda 21. Now it would be the 70 Sustainable Development Goals. What it would mean if you take this seriously and you try to contribute with your library to these goals. IFLA, for instance, and Sandra, I think you are involved in this, so far as I know. IFLA, since a couple of years now, they have a Green Library Award, but in reality it's a Global Library Award because the jury, the commission of the Library Award, evaluate the projects and the libraries against the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. How does the library contribute to these goals? And this is more than only green.
Yes, Joachim, it's indeed right. This notion about how libraries are global institutions because they interact with the society in various ways, in the ecological way, but not only. It's about finances, it's about resources, it's about people, it's about staff also. And so we have to clarify this image about global library because as you said, our libraries aren't always just books. They are people and their connections and what their expectations also about library services. Libraries is a place where people connect with each other when they can make some contribution to the production of knowledge to the society, not only because they read books, but also because they interact with each other. And so it's very important that we give this message to Portuguese librarians also. Portanto, só aqui fazer uma introdução em português também para quem nos está a ouvir. Portanto, esta noção da biblioteca global que extravasa esta ideia só da questão da sustentabilidade ou do exemplo, porque as bibliotecas também portanto, gastam recursos, também gastam energia, água, mas que de facto, para além disso, a biblioteca interage com a sociedade de várias formas e a biblioteca é para além dos livros, é um espaço de contacto entre as pessoas que produzem conhecimento, não só porque leem, mas porque também acedem à tecnologia, porque conversam umas com as outras, porque interagem uns com os outros. Portanto, a biblioteca enquanto este espaço de interação e numa biblioteca global que se situa, portanto, num espaço globalizante dentro da cidade em que está inserida. So, Joachim, let's go further.
Yeah, okay. So, the next step in our work was to determine what is common between the concept of the smart city and our library models. What we are doing in libraries today, what is common, similar, near to the concept of the smart city. And there's a problem. There's a problem with all this kind of concept. It's a kind of political label. It's not a real. You can't expect a scientific concept well defined. Some people see a smart city in other ways than other people anyway, but there are some common elements. And so what was important, I think, are two aspects. The first aspect is the focus on information. Information is crucial, is essential for smart city, and it's in the heart of library. So smart city has been described as an ubiquitous digital ecosystem made by a myriad of information-centric services willing to interact with each other. As an environment for information sharing, collaboration, interoperability, and so on and so on and so on. 3 I's of the smart city is one of these concepts: instrumentation, interconnectedness, intelligence. And information, this is something you process, you handle every day. in form of books, in form of journals, magazine, and other media. So if smart city, and this is our way to see things, if smart cities are based on information, so there's a place for libraries. The other aspect which allows to say, okay, there is an opportunity. This is the multidimensionality. The smart city is a multidimensional approach with technology level, governments level, about institutions and people, learning. This is important, smart people. Now this is something I think libraries, they can deal with. In libraries, there's a part of technology. Not only, but technology is part of librarians' life. Librarians normally are aware of technology and of the progress of technology, because technology changed the way people are accessing informations and books and so on. And this has an impact to the work of librarians and also the catalogs, database, and so. You know this. For more than 20 years now, it's a part of librarians' life. And that people are learning, this is something also in the heart of the mission of library as an institution. Governance is perhaps a little bit not out of scope, but a little bit more far away, perhaps, from what libraries are doing. On the other hand, if I go through the IFLA Code of Ethics and the idea that a library should be a democratic place, people are working together and so on, sharing and so on and so on and so on, I think there is a point where smart city and library join. So this is just the same thing as a figure. On the one hand, on the left side, the recent actual models. On the right side, the main dimensions of smart city, and in the middle, our concept of smart library. And this is what I will share with you now. 4 dimensions of smart libraries. And I will present them to you. These dimensions for us are important for the marketing of libraries in the environment of smart cities. First thing is about smart services, user-centered services. You know this, experience and so on, this way to develop services. Spirit of innovation, smart, this is citation, is more user-friendly than intelligent. This is important. And instead of trying to adapt the user to existing library services, smart libraries are required to adapt themselves to the user needs. On the right side, I pasted in an illustration of what it may mean, innovation in libraries. One part you may know, perhaps they are already part of your libraries, other part perhaps less. The best example I saw in recent years, and a well-known example, is a public library in Amsterdam. They have all this, and they have even more. They have a restaurant, they have a radio, they have a piano, they have a theater, and then all this technology. Smart people. Smart people is a second dimension. Libraries have is part of the smart people, for instance, when it comes to the production analysis of information data. So there's a local community around the library, and including the production of knowledge, not only the mediation, not intermediation, not only the transmission, but also the production of knowledge, creation, enrichment, sharing of information, knowledge, other terms that describe the vision of the smart library user's role and action.
Sorry to interrupt you, Joachim, just to make you a question about what you have just said. So you imagine the staff not only a part of the mediation process, but the production of knowledge and data.
Yeah.
How do you see that possible?
Oh, I can. Yeah.
Can you give us some example,
yes, of course.
please?
Of course. In the environment from academic libraries, more and more academic libraries today start to publish, to create platforms for journals or other kind of resources. It's publication. They produce knowledge, not only acquire and store and make information accessible, but they contribute to produce. In other environments, this may be in a different way. For instance, if a public library digitizes collections, archival, heritage collections, for instance, and put them in an environment of services and indexing, and perhaps with crowdsourcing that other people can also index and comment. And more libraries, so far as I can see, not in France, but also in other countries are doing this. So this is more than just make accessible collections. It's about knowledge producing and share this production with other people, crowdsourcing, all what we learned for nearly 20 years now with the interactive web. This became already reality in libraries. And this is something that is part of smartness.
Yes, we sometimes we product a various number of contents, but not always we have the knowledge of what we are doing, and transmit this message also about what this production means. Not only the service of mediation, but also this right. production of knowledge that library staff can do. Yes,
I think for some libraries, this may be something new. For other libraries, it may be just to label what they are already doing in a different way.
Yes.
So the third dimension, and this is typically something what is going on not only in academic but also in public libraries. It's the dimension of smart place. You know probably the concept of the third place library, innovative qualities from Green Library and the third place library, transformation of the traditional library building and functioning into a smart place that contributes as much to the sustainable development as to the smartness of the city. So what you see on the right side, perhaps you have already been there, you know this. It's not an apartment, it's part of the Amsterdam Public Library. And what you see there is not somebody living in an apartment in a building at Amsterdam, but it's a patron. It's a user of the academic library, 2 users on the right side, on the left side. Smart place. This is important. It's not only that it's a nice place, a third place, it's also a connected place with technology and so on, but it's a place, not only a collection. So as I told, in this library, it's a model, there are more than collection. There's a theater, restaurant, radio, and other things, a bar. And then smart governance. Smart governance means that there is a collective intelligence based on shared responsibilities between the library staff, library community, and other institutions. Smart management, smart networking, smart management internal with transparency of administration and so on. Perhaps user participation in at least some part of decision making. And then smart networking means outside of the library, with other libraries, with other institutions, associations, and so on. And this is the fourth dimension. And all this together is this model, smart people, smart place, smart services, smart governance, and with some keywords: user-centeredness, spirit of innovation, not only technology, community, production of knowledge, green and smart place, and participation and networking for governments. So again, this is not completely new. It's not like a concept, a theoretical concept which doesn't exist. This is not what we tried to illustrate is what is already part, some places in some libraries, at least partly, and how this could be put together to a concept. Perhaps there's already a green library, a big third place, and just what they need perhaps is to reflect about more participation, more networking, and so on.
Can I make you a question, Joachim?
Okay.
So this model, and since your background is psychology, do you see it as an attitude that more than the infrastructure, because not only libraries have, not always libraries have the infrastructure that they need to do some changes, but is the attitude, the behavior of the professionals is the fundamental key to do these changes if we want to?
It is a fundamental key, yes, but how to say it? It's perhaps more than an attitude. It's an approach, a way of conceiving or seeing the reality and to project, anticipate where people, librarians may go, want to go. I think it's more about
a vision.
Yes, a vision. I think this is, you know, that companies today, they often make marketing with a mission, a vision, and values. This is part of the vision, I think. This may be helpful to define a strategy where to go and to defend it in the smart environment.
just to make an appointment, so to the participants, em português são, então, portanto, o Joaquim estava aqui assim a partilhar connosco esta imagem, este modelo, e a falar-nos principalmente da ideia da estratégia, não é? Que nós devemos ter naquilo que queremos para os nossos serviços, portanto, a importância de uma visão. Eu perguntava se teria a ver também com uma questão de atitude, do olhar que nós devemos também fazer, mais às vezes até que as infraestruturas, porque sabemos que as bibliotecas nem todas têm as mesmas infraestruturas e possibilidades e espaços para poder dinamizar uma interação deste género que ele nos está a trazer hoje como proposta, e ele de facto diz que a base fundamental é esta visão, definir uma estratégia, pensarmos de facto o que é que nós queremos para os nossos espaços e para os nossos serviços. So, Joaquim.
Okay, so the last, so that we are not running out of time, there are two slides left. Limitation. I think you must keep in mind that it is not a solution for everybody, every library, and so it's one proposal. And there are two limitations. The first one, I think, we must keep in mind that connectedness, technology, networking, social media, and you know this, so I can be very short. There are issues with surveillance and privacy. We all know this, more or less aware that there's a problem when using Google or using Amazon and so on. We know this, and we know about mass surveillance and so on and so on and so on. And there is a discussion, a critical discussion, and I think we must take this into account with our approach to library future, a critical discussion of what this means for smartness. When you connect all together, who will control the data and who will use the data for which purpose? This is something, I think, which is in the heart of library profession. Again, have a look on IFLA Code of Ethics. The protection of privacy, personal data, and so on is part of the fundamental library values. So this is one limitation. I'm not sure that perhaps it's not a good word for this, but it's an issue. Must not forget, never. The other issue, I already said it, it's not a solution for all library problems. The concept may not apply to all libraries, and don't understand my message as if I would say to you, that's the solution for all of your problems. All libraries must become smart. No, that is not my way. A library can be modern, improve its service quality, develop new services, implement new information technology without being smart. So that is sure. In rural environment, if you have a small library in a village where smartness is not the main topic of the local policy, so you don't need to make marketing for your smart library. You can keep it in mind, but I think they are not interested there in this, perhaps not. But some library must adapt to emerging smart environment. If you are part of smart cities, as you have in Portugal, exactly as in Germany or in France or in other countries, so it would be a good idea probably to make this marketing. So smart urbanism creates a new situation to which libraries have to respond. It's our conviction. Just being modern in a world that claims to be smart and that requires smartness is not enough there for further funding and investment. But if tomorrow the policy is not about smart, but about sustainability, so would be good then to put on the top of your library strategy sustainability and redefine what you want to do, your mission and your vision about the future. So that's all what I had to say. The complete article is online, and now if you have questions, I would be glad to answer.
I believe we have two questions. Yes.
Okay.
One question from Jorge Rede. He is a teacher at Lisbon University, also science information. He asks you if even in smart cities there are people excluded from society, how smart libraries can contribute to social inclusion. What is the competitive advantage of smart libraries comparing to traditional libraries regarding this social inclusion?
Yes.
So it's a problem, not.
Yeah. It's I think it's a complex question, and I tried to answer it in a very pragmatic and perhaps cynical way.
Just let me make this approach previous. Is that in the pandemic we all get the knowledge that not all of us stand on the same position. Not and in public libraries. So we could see that the public, not all public has a computer, not all public has a smartphone, not all people has access to internet. This is a reality still. So this social inclusion that George asks is very important. So we can see, is the smart city inclusive, and how can libraries may do this work of social inclusion?
Yeah. This what libraries can do, for instance, to reduce what is called digital divide, the fracture between the one and the others in society. I think there's the large literature on it, especially, and a kind of discussion between people who say the library, their mission is reading and culture and so on, and the other said the library, they have other missions as part of the urban local policy, and including what you are mentioning there, contribution to social inclusion, which is, as I can remind, I think the heart of the concept of information commons, which started, I think, in the United Kingdom. How can smart library contribute to this? I think, on the one hand, the answer is what they already do. As I remind you, there's already a discussion on this, and there are already projects and initiatives and so on. On the other hand, a couple of months ago, I reviewed a paper coming from Toronto, Canada, where the public library in a smart city environment developed two services, and they mention social inclusion as a rational objective of both services. The one, the digital literacy for older people, and the other, more surprising for a public library, was developing digital literacy for small corporate companies. This is for me, but I'm in France, I think
but
I know
that is the
public
the
library
global
in France doing
yeah.
a policy for corporate companies, small corporate companies. I know
that's the vision about global libraries, Joachim, isn't it?
Yes.
No, it's not always just about books. It's all about economics,
yes, right.
also.
They identified in their local framework, Toronto, which is a large town, you know, they identified two, not niche, but two projects where they can contribute to social inclusion, older people and small companies.
Okay, I think we have answered George's question. We have another question of Angela from Rede. She says the model is very defying. It has the quality to propose a vision, a global vision of the library that goes beyond the service. But she thinks the question is not only about professionals, is also about the governance, the political vision that can change. Do you think governance is a crucial influence about what libraries are? I think you have told us during your presentation how marketing is important, the advocacy
yes.
we have to do.
Yes.
Maybe the answer is about marketing and advocacy, right?
Governments, I understand the question, governments of libraries. Huh? This is a question, or it's a governance outside of library. The governance which decides.
I think it's the governance, the political vision. Angela, the question is about the governance in just the governance about libraries, and also the political influence of decision makers.
Okay.
Also.
Yeah. So I can't. Sorry, I don't understand the new. I think there's. What does it mean? What Angela just.
She asks us. It's about 100% the political vision of the municipalities that where public libraries are located.
Yes.
And so we have the mayor.
Right.
We have this management of
cultural department, education
of
department,
choices
and, so on, yes.
and investments.
Yeah.
And sometimes this investment and choices doesn't go, that doesn't reflect for libraries. So they are
right.
For another choices.
Yes, of course.
Choices. This is a problem.
This is a problem, and this is exactly I don't know which is the situation in Portugal. You know, the situation, for instance, years ago in the United Kingdom, when they started to close down public libraries because lack of funding and so on. In France, so we are more or less preserved. There's not this problem, but this is just the reason for this approach. If you have a local government which other priorities than culture, then it may be good to adapt to their strategy. And if their strategy is smartness, if they make a lot buzz of smartness, they put smartness on the top of the agenda. So our concept proposes a way to develop a strategy which may fit better to this political vision than just to say we are managing collections, we are contributing to public reading, and so on and so on.
Yes. Just let me say it in Portuguese. So, é muito importante, de facto, esta ideia de como é que nós chegamos, passamos a mensagem, portanto, aos executivos, não é? Nas nossas bibliotecas públicas, e E, na realidade, temos que estar também atentos a esta mensagem que o Joaquim estava a passar, qual é que é a estratégia do município, para nós nos enquadrarmos na estratégia municipal também e mostrarmos que as bibliotecas também podem ir ao encontro destas estratégias municipais, intermunicipais também, portanto, um bocadinho ir ao encontro daquilo que as bibliotecas têm para oferecer e que podem perfeitamente encaixar, portanto, sairmos um pouco da nossa bolha daquilo que fazemos todos os dias e olharmos para aquilo que está a ser feito, os alinhamentos, as estratégias municipais e alinharmos um pouco por aí. We have another question.
Yes.
Let me see from Rosa.
Yes.
I got a question that might be a challenge to some Portuguese public libraries. Won't these innovation library services and activities collide with the social and educational city services? How can libraries be smart without getting the attributions of other city services? I can see the question. So you talked about the educational purposes of libraries because you have an example of academic libraries on your background. So I can see why you focused on the educational purpose of libraries. And in case of public libraries in Portugal, we have public libraries, we have school libraries, and sometimes we have to be, we have to complement these services to the publics, but we have distinct publics. So public libraries are for all the community and school libraries are for students. But can this be a challenge when in a city we have science information services that provide the same aspects to the society? Is that a challenge, or can they be complementary?
I think to respond in a global way, I think this is a challenge if all institutions are working independently and if all institutions are developing their strategy as if the other institutions wouldn't exist. I think then it's a challenge. But on the other hand, smart city is based on the concept of networking and interconnectedness, and not only technology interconnections, but also networking from different institutions. So in a general way, I think the smart city approach would reduce the risk of this problem. And more pragmatically, on the library level, I think even now, when you develop your strategy, even outside of all aspects of smartness and so on, even now, before you do it, you look around what already exists in your environment, and you will look around. Perhaps you make a survey with your patrons, and you discuss with other people to say, okay, we don't need to do what others are already doing, but maybe there's something missing.
Yes,
and
it's very
when
important
you have
to
the
look
skills and the
around
resources, then it's okay, do it.
Thank you, Joaquim. We have another question from Margarida. She asks you about which type of degree do you think it's required to be responsible for a smart library? Because as we know, sometimes we have limits in contracting staff with different skills. So what about this aspect? What skills do we have to need? Do you need in staff? It's not only about the degree, but more about the profile of the staff, really.
Yeah, I can see. In fact, our discussion included this aspect, but let me answer in two ways. The first way is we didn't imagine at no time, at no moment, at any moment, we didn't imagine a new librarian who doesn't exist now. So in our head, it was, this is a project, a concept which is which you can realize, start to realize with your resources, actual resources. If you are in the environment and if you think there's an opportunity and a reason to do it, then of course, there may be limitations with technology skills, but I can't answer in any other way, in the global way. I don't know your reality. The technology that I saw in library environments for the moment, there's nothing where this needs completely new skills which don't exist for the moment in libraries. So you don't need, for instance, to code, to need programming and to develop new technology. This is not what I, for the moment, I saw in what I call smart libraries. You're already working with digital infrastructure, with the web, with internet, with digital library system. You're already working with them.
Yes, along this way, these past decades, we've seen the need of the librarians to adjust their profile, their skills for this challenging society, not only about technology, but in fact, the changing in society, the demands of the public, the attention of the different publics to other sources of information, and how we can relate to that, and how we can adjust our ways of working. So it's been a challenging for librarians, I think. Sometimes we feel we're always running after the advancing, but we go along and we do the best we can. Então não sei se temos mais questões para o Joachim. I'm just seeing if we have another question for you. So I want to thank you about this approach to smart cities, smart libraries. Maybe you can stop sharing your presentation so the participants can see. Yes, thank you, Joachim. So thank you so much for your presentation about smart cities and smart libraries. In Portugal, we have different realities in the national scenario. So we are going to think about what these aspects that you have brought us today. So what are you going to do next to show us? Let me just say to our listeners that you have a wide range of public articles, but I'll say it in Portuguese. So, para quem quiser conhecer o trabalho também do Joachim, ele está disponível na internet, muitos artigos também sobre esta questão das smart cities, green libraries, a questão também mais virada para as bibliotecas académicas, a parte dos repositórios e das teses e a literatura cinzenta também. So what you in the past few years sometimes you change your investigation.
Yes and no.
Focus.
Yes
So
and no.
what are you preparing next?
What I'm preparing next, I have a couple of years until my retirement, so I will not start to something completely new, but I can tell you. So I will continue to teach marketing and auditing of library and information services. But for the moment, I don't see any new concept coming up. So this is, in the library environment, I think this is continuity, learning centers, and smartness, and green and sustainable libraries. I think this is on the top of the agenda of library development and will remain there. I can't see anything new right now. My research interest, it's linked, much more linked to my professional past as a library director in the research environment. My research interest has to do with scientific academic communications, and especially the open science environment. Perhaps you have heard on it: openness, open access to publications, open access to research data, and evaluation, open evaluation systems, which are main part of information technology in the academic environment. These are the heart of my interest. And you are right. From time to time, I change my topics. For a couple of years, I have been managing the National Facility for the Digitization of PhD thesis in France, which is in Lille. And
Yes.
so I published much more about PhD thesis and dissemination of PhD thesis and open access to dissertation and so on. Right. But the heart of my interest is scientific communication.
I can promise you we'll be with very attention to what your publications are next. And we have to thank you for this participation. Dizer só aqui em português aos colegas que estão a ouvir-nos, portanto, que vamos continuar com os nossos webinars. A próxima sessão do webinar é já para o dia 19 de abril. Vocês conseguem aceder online à inscrição também. É sobre as literacias da informação, portanto, para as bibliotecas públicas. Desafiámos também aqui alguns colegas que trabalham a questão das literacias da informação em contexto académico para nos fazerem uma abordagem específica para as bibliotecas públicas. Portanto, não deixem de fazer a vossa inscrição e partilhar estes nossos webinars. So, Joachim, thank you so much. We will be in touch and we'll be seeing you somewhere. And so, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I was glad to be with you. And I think, smart or not, library is a great environment. And being a librarian, I think it's a great job. Much more interesting than many others.
We can resume the importance about the work with the people, with the public, sharing the place as a place of connections. And despite technology or not, if it's a city or not, it's the importance of the access of the information and improving the quality of life where the libraries are, and it's very important in that way. So thank you so much, Joachim. Obrigada a todos pela vossa participação. Continuamos por aqui até um dia. Obrigada, então. Bye.
Bye.